I've been going over a few things. I've tried to include and review videos, but I get all run out of time, run out of what I'm trying to say. So I'm going to put this down, pull up my other windows, see how it goes, and start out with a blog article by Alex Schadenberg, actually by Wesley Smith. It's called Euthanasia Holocaust, not about Nazis, not about the Nazis. The following article is written by Wesley Smith and published on his blog on July 16th under the title Euthanasia Holocaust, not about the Nazis. Now, I'm going to go down here a little bit, and it says, Germany is creating a memorial to the 200,000 plus victims of the euthanasia Holocaust, in which doctors enthusiastically killed disabled babies and adults between the years 1939 and 45. And there's a BBC story, I guess, about it. And go down the page. It says, if that sounds familiar, it should. Today, the Netherlands permits the infanticide of babies because they are seriously disabled as an act of, quote, compassion. And after birth abortion, quote unquote, is promoted in the most respectable medical and bioethics journals. Eugenic abortion is an epidemic, with 90% of Down syndrome and dwarf fetuses never being permitted to see the light of day. We dehydrate to death people with profound cognitive disabilities by removing sustenance from the suicide clinics are operating in Switzerland and in Belgium. Euthanasia is coupled with organ harvesting. Well, there we go. Euthanasia and organ harvesting. Now, I remember in around 2000, 2001, I remember reading a bioethics post about this doctor who defected. He was from China. Him and other doctors were called to a prison camp in China for death row inmates. And they were told to skin alive, take all the skins and all the organs out of their bodies while they were alive. They were not given sedation. They were still alive, and it traumatized these doctors. The one doctor in particular defected the first chance he got to the United States. Not long after that, I started hearing about one of the super hospitals down in the U.S. is making decisions that, hey, this is a way to scale down the number of organ rejections when they put them into new recipients. Well, of course, they would sedate the patient first, but it all began with this one doctor who had been so traumatized by the experience he had, having his skin and deorganized all of these inner death row inmates in China. Now, the right to die organizations got it going there. Suicide clinics are operating in Switzerland, and in Belgium, euthanasia is coupled with organ harvesting. So maybe Belgium is the only country doing it. I don't know. But hey, ideas spread fast, like forest fires. So he says, calling the euthanasia Holocaust a Nazi issue is a defense mechanism that enables us to pursue pernicious policies with some different motives and without the hate speech to be sure, and not see that the log is also in our own eye. For as Dr. Leo Alexander, the noted psychiatrist and medical investigator in the Nuremberg trials, warned in 1949. The 1949 pages of the New England Journal of Medicine. And here's what he says. Whatever proportions these crimes finally assumed, it became evident to all who investigated them that they had started from small beginnings. The beginnings at first were merely a subtle shift in emphasis on the basic attitude of the physicians. It started with the acceptance of the attitude, basic in the euthanasia movement, that there is such a thing as life not worthy to be lived. This attitude in its early stages concerned itself merely with the severely and chronically sick. That's how it all started out. Gradually, the sphere of those to be included in this category was enlarged to encompass the socially unproductive, the ideologically unwanted, the racially unwanted, and finally all non-Germans. But it is important to realize that the infinitely small wedged-in lever from which this entire trend of mind received its impetus was the attitude toward the non-rehabilitable sick. The killing center is a reductio ad absurdum of all health planning based only on rational principles and economy, and not on humane compassion and divine law. To be sure, the American physicians are still far from the point of thinking of killing centers. Well, that was way back then, 1949. But they have arrived at the danger point in thinking at which the likelihood of full rehabilitation is considered a factor that should determine the amount of time, effort, and cost to be devoted to a particular type of patient on the part of the social body upon which this decision rests. And I'll definitely say this, that the Terry Schiavo case was the one who put it full throttle for Michael Schiavo's benefit. Get rid of his wife. She was put in the condition she was in because she was asking for a divorce. Why all that information was not given to the courts during her case, I don't know, because that would have sure started the ball rolling to take care of Michael Schiavo for the crime he committed against his wife the night she wanted a divorce. That was what caused Terry Schiavo and her final 13-day torture and execution by the courts. So this guy says, at this point, Americans should remember that the enormity of a euthanasia movement is present in our own midst. But when the U.S. is not just present, they are rampant, and in Canada too, in Winnipeg, and in Ontario, there have been cases in the last few years where the doctors wanted to terminate patients against their consent and against their families' consent when they were not awake, not conscious to be able to fight for themselves. But their family members fought, and they knew what the patient's will was. However, these doctors in Ontario and Winnipeg wanted to terminate patients, but they finally lost their cases, and the patients died of natural causes, which is what they wanted. So here is the okay, I'm gonna go to another article. There is I go to another one. Now, I don't know if it was a while back. Recently, I either said something about Mandela and Prince Philip on YouTube, or it might have been Facebook. But I had the idea that because they were big shot celebrities, that nobody was putting any time limit on their lives. But it turns out I've come across these articles about Nelson Mandela, and it seems like the Duty to Die organizations down there have been really pushing it when he was in critical condition to just finish him off. There's a few things I want to read. This is from the Global News. Mandela's long hospitalization sparks end of life discussions in South Africa. Now let's find out what date that was. It was July 13th, 2013. It starts at Johannesburg, South Africa. Sean Dawson's and Depison's mother, a doctor, knew she faced an impending, painful death from cancer. Not willing to endure it, she chose to end her life by not eating. That attempt, Depipson said, went terribly wrong. It went on for 5 weeks, drinking a glass of water each day, said Depipson, a South African citizen by way of New Zealand. She was decomposing. She couldn't move any limb of her body, which is when I helped her at her request to end her life. Now, here we go. The Right to Die movement, they always come out with these really gruesome, gory details to rub in everybody's nose to scare everybody. That's what it does. It scares people to think about their own lives and their own family members getting into situations which are really gruesome. Now, it's really sad that she wound up in that kind of circumstance, but she was a doctor, and she should have been able to get better palliative care than she got, but she didn't. And it says the end-of-life decisions have become a burning topic of discussion in South Africa, where former President Nelson Mandela has been hospitalized for 5 weeks, much of that time in critical condition. A court filing late last month misstated that Mandela was in a permanent vegetative state, but that appears to have been either exaggerated or simply incorrect. A report from the Mail and Guardian, a respected South African newspaper, says that the 94-year-old does not have a living will, meaning tricky in-life decisions could be left to a very fractured Mandela family. Now, the thing about it, I was reading a few articles the last few days about this, and it turns out that in the 1980s, I think it was, when he was president, he was working on anti-life laws, but he never made his own living will. So he's a typical person where the medical system wants to finish him off, and his family is divided which direction to go or whatever. But it says Mandela's wife, the third wife, said Friday she is less anxious about the health of South Africa's first black president as she was a week ago. He continues to respond positively to treatment. So anyway, I was going through all this stuff, and next thing you know, I learned that Mandela, in spite of all the different articles talking about how it's going to be impossible to get him off life support and all that, he was going to celebrate his 95th birthday at home. So for all the freaker-outers who kind of have this doomsday thing that if people are on life support, that they're doomed forever to be on it, and they would die if they're extubated. It looks like they took him home on room air. Duh, he's doing better than I am. But anyway, so much for all the big shot experts looking for every advantage to finish people off. The US, Canada, the UK, there are some other good articles I came across, and I hope I can remember where they are. I got a good article from Denmark. It's about Denmark. Okay, I'm going to put that one down. Doctors advised. Now let's see what day this was. It was July 4th. Doctors advised Mandela's life support be turned off for reports. He is in a permanent vegetative state and is assisted in breathing by a life support machine, said a legal filing related to a family dispute over reburying the remains of the Mandela's 3 children, etc., etc. Meanwhile, Mandela's wife said the former president is sometimes uncomfortable, but seldom in pain, while being treated in a hospital. So anyway, there he is, alive but not well. But he celebrated his 95th birthday. Late happy birthday, Mandela. Yoo-hoo for you. Okay, put that one away. New York Times. Medical experts in and outside South Africa who are not involved in the former president's care have taken the government's cryptic statement that Mr. Mandela is in critical but stable condition to mean that he is being sustained by equipment. Oh no, isn't that horrible? He's on life support equipment, which given his advanced age could present his relatives, doctors in the country with a wretched choice about how long to keep the 94-year-old alive. Well, you know what? I've been thinking about this for a long time. The only time a person is really, really dead is when their heart stops pumping. Okay? Now, I don't think the respirator makes the heart pump. The respirator does the breathing. I understand that part. I've been on life support a few times, but I was able to get extubated. So they're all freaked out that the older people get, that they could not be extubated, or they would die as soon as they're extubated. The thing is that people can be transferred from the life support to oxygen. I'm on oxygen right now. In 2006, I sustained a respiratory failure because of a Depipson drug to raise my white cells. Because I was on a treatment for hepatitis C, and my white cells were very low. But it was a drug nobody knew about. And after my first injection, it knocked me out in 2 days. I got an injection on a Thursday. And Saturday morning when I went to get out of bed, after the worker helped me get my legs and my clothes on, and I went to get out of bed, stand up and go do something, and I couldn't breathe. So I fell back into bed and grabbed my O2, this thing, and I couldn't get off oxygen for more than a few minutes for the next 3 or 4 years. And I never expected I was going to ever fully recover from that. But sure enough, after the time I started recovering until about, for at least 2 or 3 years, I was able to get through most of the day on room air. But last November, I've gone through another decline, but I'm not totally finished yet. And I'm not worried about me. I'm just thinking about how many people are really being made miserable because they have to almost bow to be able to live their lives because the big money man will juggle the economies of countries, and that's always the last, what do you call it? The last decision maker is the money man. So with people like Mandela, 94 years old, and there are other people who are older, who are on life support. I understand that the world would never have the ability to make a lot of life support equipment, and they sure would not be able to get enough workers. I mean, that would be pretty ridiculous. However, a person's heart, when it stops pumping, the person is dead. But they've gone way too overboard by all these big shot experts who look for every chance to write people off as vegetable. You're a vegetable. They don't know anything. They're in a coma. Hey, just to finish people off. They're so afraid that they'll wind up on life support for years. And it seems like, I don't know if it's in this article or another article, but it turns out there's a guy in Israel. Yeah, here it is. This too is an age when ventilators, feeding tubes, and other high-tech machines could keep people, even though it's a permanent vegetative state, alive for months and even years, as in the case of Ariel Sharon, the 84-year-old former Israeli Prime Minister, who has been in a coma since he had a devastating stroke in 2006. It says not enough is known about Mr. Mandela's medical condition to know exactly how his case might fall under South African law, experts in medical legal issues say. So now they're totally confused because he doesn't have his own living will, and his family seems to be divided. So what to do this and do? And then there's the courts. And then the courts wind up making a decision if the family doesn't agree on his future when he does die. Very confusing. You know, it would not have been so confusing if the Right to Die movement had never been born. If there had just never been an organized effort to start killing people off. I say killing people off because in all the places they did their crybaby campaigns about all the suffering people, and then they got laws passed. It didn't take long in all those areas for the non-solicited killings to start taking place. And in Quebec, the last few years, I was pretty amazed by the doctors in Yves Robert, one of the big shots in the medical colleges in Quebec. He just blew it off. Oh, sure, there's going to be mistakes made, and big deal. And he's not the only person who made snuffy statements like that. Well, it's easy just for a country to, as long as they got money coming in and they got their lifestyle rocking and everything. It's okay for them to just think, oh, big deal. Oh, it's all a mistake was made. I don't know them. Big deal. So, well, that 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 person, they every time a situation like that where a person is killed, that was their life to live without being killed. And I think that more people need to learn to understand what's behind the Right to Die movement. They're not the nice guys, and with indignitus in Switzerland, they're getting so wealthy now. They're getting such a business going that now they're jacking up the price. Hey, you guys, you want to get your assisted suicide? Come on over, but hey, the prices are going up. So, that look like they care about you, your suffering, and your end of life. It's a bunch of crap. So, get a life and think about thousands of years that people have died. Thousands of years, long before there was ever any Adolf Hitler, or Operation T4, the Right to Die movement. People died. People died in pain. People died in the most gruesome ways, and they still do. But they died. And with good palliative care, that's what people need. That's what people want. And of course, the Right to Die movement, they try to twist all that. And especially here in Quebec, they're trying to twist everything to where their idea of death with dignity and dying, aid in dying, and their Bill 52 is all a Belgium copy of their law. They worship, they bow and worship to Belgium because they are such good killers and have such an effective program. And in Belgium, up to 80% of the people are killed against their consent, and 50% of the deaths are not even reported. That means only 20% of the executions in Belgium are people who solicited and campaigned for their deaths. So think about that. Now, I think I ran out of time for more on this video because I can't find the other articles I was looking at. Oh no, I did something wrong. Let's see here. Oh no. That's it for today. Is promoted in the most respectable medical and bioethics journals. Eugenic abortion is an epidemic, with 90% of Down syndrome and dwarf fetuses never being permitted to see the light of day. We dehydrate to death people with profound cognitive disabilities by removing sustenance from the suicide clinics are operating in Switzerland and in Belgium. Euthanasia is coupled with organ harvesting. Well, there we go. Euthanasia and organ harvesting. Now, I remember in around 2000, 2001, I remember reading that bioethics fell down the number of organ rejections when they put them into new recipients. Well, of course, they would sedate the patient first, but it all began with this one doctor who had been so traumatized by the experience he had, having his skin had deorganized all these inner death row inmates in China. Now the Right to Die organizations, they got it going there. Suicide clinics are operating in Switzerland, and in Belgium, euthanasia is coupled with organ harvesting. So maybe Belgium is the only country doing it. I don't know. But about this doctor who defected. He was from China. Him and other doctors were called to a prison camp in China for death row inmates, and they were told to skin alive, take all the skins and all the organs out of their bodies while they were alive. They were not given sedation. They were still alive, and it traumatized these doctors. The one doctor in particular defected the first chance he got to the United States. Not long after that, I started hearing about one of the super hospitals down in the U.S. is making decisions that, hey, this is a way to scale. I've been going over a few things. I've tried to include in review videos, but I get all run out of time, run out of what I'm trying to say. So I'm going to put this down, pull up my other windows, see how it goes, and start out with a blog article by Alex Schadenberg, actually by Wesley Smith. It's called Euthanasia Holocaust, not about Nazis, not about the Nazis. The following article is written by Wesley Smith and published on his blog on July 16th under the title Euthanasia Holocaust, not about the Nazis. Now, I'm going to go down here a little bit, and it says, Germany is creating a memorial to the 200,000 plus victims of the euthanasia Holocaust, in which doctors enthusiastically killed disabled babies and adults between the years 1939 and 45. And there's a BBC story, I guess, about it. And go down the page. It says, if that sounds familiar, it should. Today, the Netherlands permits the infanticide of babies because they are seriously disabled as an act of, quote, compassion, and after birth abortion, quote unquote.